My role within the Hutchinson's business is to develop and drive our own precision agronomy services. And our business, we have around 220 to about 220 agronomists looking after and advising on upwards of about 1.2 million hectares, covering every single crop you can think of and many that you can't. I've been asked to come and give you some practical lessons from the field about big data. Okay, fair enough. I should probably see what big data actually means. And a little bit like Jane, I thought, you know what, I best just actually check it out. I didn't cite where I got mine from because I got mine from Google, which on the face of that is probably not a very clever place to start, because actually it just says that big data is a large volume of data. Well, I probably could have worked that out for myself. However, it did then go on to say actually that it wasn't the size of the data that was important, or the amount of it. It was what businesses do with that data that matters. And I thought that that really rung true with what we see in our sector of farming advice. And the reason why I see this, I mean, I've been involved in precision farming now since about 2003, and here is just a small list of businesses, devices, systems that produce a data stream. And typically those data streams arrive as a single silo, as Benjamin was saying. And what we get from our customers and from what our farmers tell us is this. They are typically swarmed, buried under this pile of paper. Okay, it's probably not paper, it's ones and noughts, but you get the picture. And they are turning to us for help. And that tends to be in two strands. The first one is they get given something like this and say, right, how do I actually start to try and do something with this? How can I see the data? How can I actually start to move forward? But the biggest question we get asked is this: so what? I've just received a machine that's telling me all this data, or I've now just got a service that's got this stream of data. How do I use that to make better decisions within our farming business? And whether we like it or not, the agronomist is on the farm typically every week, and they are the person that most farmers will turn to as their first port of call to ask for help on all sorts of things, whether that be data, whether that be agronomy advice, whether that is shooting advice, whether that is marriage guidance. They tend to be that person that they ask. If you think about where precision farming has come from, we tend to look at it as a single layered issue, and this is how precision farming has evolved for a long period of time, where you have a yield map, you have a soil analysis map or a soil textural map, and you'll base a single decision based upon that. And this hasn't been working for many people because they've been taking a single layer of data and they've been making a whole heap of decisions about that single layer of data. And actually, we need to bring more in to it, and we need to take a different approach. So as a business, we decided that we had to provide help and guidance to our customers so that we could actually start to connect some of this data together, so that it's not just sitting in a silo here, a bucket there, a folder over there. Actually, it's all starting to come together in one place, and so that our farmers, our agronomists can then start to make some sense of it all. So we did actually listen to some of our own staff and some of our farmers. It's always a good thing to do, to listen to the people that you're trying to deal with. And they told us that actually they want all the data in one place. Not a very common thing to say, but actually that's what they told us. It's all got to be there in one place. They then want the ability to analyse that data, and also they want to be able to create actions based upon that data. So 3 quite simple goals that they told us that they needed to do. But probably the single most important thing was whatever we did, it has got to be easy. Now, whether that is operating the system, whether that is moving data around, whether that is anything, it's got to be easy. Experience has shown me over my working life is that if it's not easy, it gets dropped pretty quickly, and it then gets replaced with something that is easy. So we put all of that together, and we kind of decided that actually we could start to achieve what farmers wanted. So we put ourselves in the middle, as I'm sure many of the businesses in here, you always put yourself in the middle of any chart that you're going to put up, but we do put ourselves in the middle of this. And we can bring data in from a whole range of different places, whether that was from existing farm management software, historical data that's been created by another provider, or wherever it's come from. But then alongside of that, we can then import data from different machines. Some of these are very simple and straightforward, some of them are not. If it was up to us, we would go, actually, do you know what, anything that makes our life difficult, we just wouldn't actually allow people to view that data, because actually it's making our life very difficult to read some of these different data types. But then if we did that, we would exclude some. So actually we do the hard work on behalf of our farmers, so that then they can then read that data in a simple and straightforward manner. And then you'll see we've got the farmer and the agronomist, and there's a word that sits between them, knowledge. And we think that is probably the single most important thing, that they are able to put their knowledge into that and make decisions. So whilst we can analyse the data and come up with an answer, for reasons best known to either one of those, that answer may not be correct. So they want to be able to change and manipulate that answer. And I think that's a really important point, because actually we all think that we've got a system that is providing an answer to a farmer, but farmers are humans and they have got other thoughts as to what they think that answer should be, so we allow people to change that answer. Once they have decided that they're going to do and make an action based upon that data, and if that action involves sending some data out to a machine, we can then send that data out to a machine, typically on a USB stick, but more and more cloud connectivity. So that's kind of how we see our world, and I thought this was a relevant thing to put up, because there's probably quite a lot of you in the room that work for one of these different businesses just here. So in practical terms, what we allow people to do is we allow people to take individual streams of data, typically in the form of a single map layer. Could have come from any number of different machines, any number of different sources of data, but when it sits in our system, it's all there as one place. And then the user can then choose which of those is the most important thing to use for a specific operation. And then we can then analyze that data to then take into account multiple layers of that data to then produce an action, whether that is a variable application of a product, whether that is yield map analysis, whatever it might be. What we are finding, though, is when people look at an answer, what the first thing is that particularly some of the more forward-thinking guys are doing is they are going out, they're taking a real high-tech piece of kit called a spade, and they are digging a hole to try and understand what is going on in that particular part. Now, I'm sure that there are some people in this room that think you may have the answer to a spade in some sort of digital sensor or whatever it might be. Then I'd say, well, bring it on. Let's see what that looks like. But at the moment, the spade does tend to be the weapon of choice. So I now want to run through 3 different examples as to how we use data within our system and how we interact with that data, because I felt that was quite important. So the first thing I want to touch on is actually our new soil mapping service, that we're using a different method of mapping soil, looking at emission of gamma radiation. And one thing that we found is this creates a lot of data. So if we look at that image on the left, if we were to go and do a hectare grid test, that would be the red dots. So in this case, the field is just over 8 hectares. We would take 8 data points. This new soil mapping service has taken over 6,500 data points for that particular field. But then on top of that, we're then creating 21 individual map layers that all contain 6,500 data points for each field. So we've gone from taking 8 data points to tens, if not hundreds of thousands. So from a farmer's perspective, they want to know how these different properties vary in the field, but we've got to show that to them in an easy to understand way. And one of the ways that we do this is by trying to think about how this data is going to be used and then present it in a way that makes sense. And I show this slide here. So here I've got a field, the map layer on the left, pretty dull and boring. The map layer on the right, gosh, there's a lot of change there. We really must change our management based upon what we are seeing on the map layer on the right. And that is what is often perceived when you see a picture on the right. You think, gosh, there's a lot going on there, I must change. However, when we actually look at the data is exactly the same. We've just chosen to present it in a different way to the grower. And we will always show the data on the left. So here we're looking at how clay varies in a field, and it's not varying a great deal. It's only varying by 3 or 4 percentage points, which is why the map on the left doesn't show any change. And actually, from a management perspective, you're not going to change your management based upon a change in clay based on 3 or 4%. If that was 30 to 40%, then yes, there is going to be a lot of management change. And you can see the scales that we've adopted so that you can show that to the grower. The challenge that we find is that it doesn't matter whether it's a map that's being generated from a machine or from a sensor or from a service. Typically the default view is the view on the right, not the view on the left. The second area that I wanted to touch on is this thing. I'm sure you can all work out that that's a cloud. It's not the first time that the word cloud has been mentioned, but the quicker we can move away from manually moving data, the better. And that is being driven predominantly by businesses that are in this room today actually opening up and allowing their data to be served to one of these mythical clouds, but then also allowing an opening connection to that. And we've started with that journey. So we have got 2 connections up here. We've got a connection with John Deere, where we can freely move yield files, prescription data, boundaries, etc. And then also with our Connect system. We have just finished work developing with Class to connect to their telematics system, and also just finished work connecting to the Greenlight Grower Management tool for field and cropping information exchange. But actually, when we look at the world of farming, there's not many brands up here. And I've chosen my colours deliberately as to whereabouts we would like to and where we feel that we should connect to, because there are lots of other businesses that are generating data through their machinery, through their sensors. And whilst it's a manual file transfer, it doesn't tick that box of being easy. And from what our customers are telling us, they are changing the way they purchase their machinery. So before it used to be what's the biggest, what's the fastest, what's got the most power. It's now starting to change that actually what's generating the better data, or what is generating the easiest way that I can get the data into whatever platform I want to use it. That is what I'm potentially going to make my buying choice on, if there are 2 machines that are fairly similar. And then the final of the 3 things I wanted to talk about is this, our Connect tool. Now, this is a way that we can send a prescription, whether that be from generated within our own system or by loading a shapefile into that web address. And what it does is it then sends that data directly to an iPad in the field, which has then got a serial connection to whatever machine it is going to connect to spray, spread or drill. Now, there will be some people in this room that will go, serial connection? That's a bit 1990s. Shouldn't we be ISOBus? The world has now changed. ISOBus is leading the way. On farm, we don't see that at all. And actually, the reason why people are looking to use our Connect system is that we have made it easy. So a single push button, it goes to an app that runs on an iPad. Whether you've got a child that's 2 or a grandmother that is 95, they can all use an app on an iPad. The data just arrives and it just works. And that is a really important point. That's one of the main reasons why people are buying this now. It's not because they need that connection, because they may have got an auto steer box that has got the ability to connect to one of these machines. We make it easy for people to use. So bringing all these things together then, we can kind of bring in the high resolution soil mapping. We can connect to a machinery cloud. So in this case, we'll be pulling yield data directly in from a telematics system. And we can then show that to the user in a simple and straightforward way, but we still allow them to make changes and change the answer according to what they want to do. And then we can then easily deliver that to the field through our Connect system. I wanted to end on this because I thought it was quite apt because of the room that I'm talking to. So here we have a machine. Let's assume that that is the farming business. We have some cogs. Let's assume that those cogs are individual streams of data flowing into that machine. If a stream of data doesn't match with what that farmer is wanting to do, or if that stream of data is difficult for that person or is not possible for that person to move it to whatever platform they want to combine it with the rest of their cogs of data, this is what is going to happen. And we see it happening where actually a stream of data is either very difficult to work with, or it's not possible to move it into where they want to do it, and they go, do you know what? Let's bin it out. Let's find a new stream of data. Let's find a new cog to go in there. And typically that's a different brand of data. So I just want you to think about this and think, actually, can we make our data flow around to third parties in a better way to make the farmers get the best out of it?